we have 290 plus or minus councils around the country. That all have local CEO, Scout executive leadership, and so we have several of the Scout executives that are here joining us, and also Scout executives that are joining us online. But Brad became a Scout executive there in Rhode Island, there in Binghamton, New York, and joined the National Council as the division director, where he ran Cub Scouts as the national director, and then served as the Scout executive in Seattle, Washington, and then became the regional director of the Central Region. And in 2009, he assumed the new position, as the Assistant Chief Scout Executive at the national office in Irving, and oversees development, which is the area. We have 4 different development departments. Also oversees government affairs and our lobbying efforts in Washington, D.C., and all of our sustainability initiatives roll up under Brad's leadership as well. So welcome, Brad. Quick introduction on Hays. As Chief Revenue Officer, Hays Bernard focuses on the ways in which consumers, businesses, and government organizations can switch to cleaner energy at a lower cost through a range of integrated solutions. Prior to joining SolarCity, Hays was the chairman and CEO of Paramount Equity, a consumer finance company specializing in mortgage, insurance, and residential solar. By mid-year 2013, Paramount Equity had funded more than $12 billion in consumer financing and helped over 55,000 families achieve greater savings since 2003. Hays serves on the board of directors at Paramount Holdings, and also serves as the president of the Give Power Foundation, SolarCity's initiative to provide light via renewable energy to schools that lack access to electricity. He holds a bachelor's degree in business management and marketing from the University of Missouri, part of the great SEC now. And I want to welcome Hays. So welcome, guys.
Great. Thank
you.
Go
ahead, Brad.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that very much. This reminds me of that Saturday Night Live skit where Gilda Radner impersonated Barbara Walters and said, if you were a twee, what type of twee would you be? But I think we'll have some fun with it nonetheless. A green one, that's right. Well, welcome both, and Hays, Tom, really appreciate your participation. You know, both of you have alluded to the cultures in your corporation. This morning we spoke about it a little bit at breakfast, and Tom, certainly you've alluded to it. When you hire staff, how does sustainability enter into those hiring practices? What do you look for, and how important is it as you look for prospective employees, candidates?
Yeah, I'll start, Tom, with that one, if it's okay with you. So, you know, I founded 4 of my own businesses. In the beginning, you say, I want to hire smart, driven people, right? I mean, that's kind of the formula. If you can find someone with tenacity and hunger, then you hire those kind of people. And then when you get into this space, it's really important to hire people with a big, audacious why. You know, Cynthia did a good job of talking about it, but people that find real meaning and purpose in doing something where they're going to leave a legacy behind, where they can make a positive difference in the world, that's what really, when we find that person at SolarCity, we say, okay, you're part of our culture, you're part of the fit, they got to have the intellect, they got to have the hunger, but if they don't have that big, audacious why and that mission where they feel like they can change the world, then it typically isn't a good fit.
That's great.
Yeah, we'd like to look for people that certainly know about teamwork and want to be involved in teamwork, because a lot of creative ideas can come with sharing. And so we certainly look for teamwork as one of the things in people that we hire. In addition, we look for creativity, which might sound interesting when you're talking about production associates. They might think, well, they're there to do just their job. Well, no, they're not just there to do their job. They're there to contribute to the organization, contribute to society. And to do that, you've got to be creative and innovative. When we have a new class of associates come in, too, I meet with every new class of associates and talk to them. They're trained in analytical troubleshooting and various things, and they, of course, all know about 5 why. They're trained in 5 why. I talk to them about the 5 why nots. Not just looking at why is something, but why not? Why don't we go to the next step with this? You know, don't think outside the box. Think how we can make a different box. Think how we can eliminate the box. Boy, that'd be a good elimination of waste, wouldn't it? So we talk to them about that right away. We explain to them also about some of the things we have to incentivize them. I mentioned our Kaizen competition. Actually, the winning team from our company goes to Japan every year to compete, and they get 3 days of just vacation in Japan and sightseeing. In addition to that, we have a program where we incentivize people based on getting a percentage of cost savings or other types of rewards. We've had 2 associates over time that have actually won free cars by accumulating points for coming up with Kaizen ideas, be it, again, in the areas of productivity, of environmental stewardship, of safety, of cost, various other types of ideas. So we try it not only when we hire them to get some good characteristics, but also immediately when they come into the organization to familiarize and try and train them in the things we want for sustainability.
That's brilliant. That's great. We are going to ask some questions from the audience here in a little bit, so as some of these comments are made, have your thinking caps on, and when we turn it to you, we'd like to not hear crickets and see a few hands go up with questions. But you know, once you have that employee and you've created that culture, you know, Tom and I were mentioning earlier, we grew up, and Hayes, you may have too, during the Don't Litter campaigns. And we don't see those ads necessarily anymore. And then we grew up in the Wear Your Seatbelt campaigns long before they were state laws and so on. And now we see a lot of sustainability campaigns on television and preparedness and so on. How does your company keep that momentum going so that while it's a part of the culture, it's almost assumptive at some point, we hope, but at the same time, we can't ever lean back and watch the world go by. How do we keep that going?
Yeah, that's a good one. It's interesting, right? You're right, though. There's these series of movements that take place in our time. And the one I remember like distinctly, and I hope I don't offend anybody on this one, but I was raised by a single mom, only child in St. Louis, Missouri. My mom had 2 jobs, and she smoked cigarettes, okay? And I can remember being in the back seat of my mom's car and saying, "Mom, you got to stop smoking." And she'd say, oh honey. She'd kind of blow me off, you know, and I'd say, "No, Mom, I know this isn't good for you. I know you got to stop smoking. I love you. You're my mom. You're all I got. Like, please, Mom, you got to stop smoking," right? And then I graduated from University of Missouri. I went to work at this place in St. Louis, Missouri called Heritage Communications, and I'll never forget it. I sat at the conference table, and everybody brought their ashtrays in. And everybody, you know, lit up a cigarette around the conference table, and I'm like, wow, okay, you know, this can't be healthy for everybody, but maybe I'm the one that's the guy that's sitting on the wrong side of the table here. Well, 2 months later, I ended up moving to Silicon Valley and, worked there for the last 20 years. But the net of it is, I think, like, you have to check yourself sometimes. I think as a person, your instincts tell you know what's right. And we're trained through great slick marketing campaigns or whatever it may be to believe oftentimes what corporate America wants us to believe, where they can make a nickel. And I think at some point you've got to go back to your core being and say, okay, what's right, what's wrong, where do I want to invest my time? And force your mind to believe in a better way. That may sound a little corny, but I think that, like, if you can really level set yourself and say, okay, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way than what we're doing right now, and kind of call yourself out on some of the things that might not be healthy for the planet right now. We know what's right. We know what's wrong. Then it just comes down to taking action. And I think that's the piece where great leaders such as the Boy Scouts organization or awesome corporations like Subaru have really stepped up and said, okay, we're going to lead. We're going to lead because we know it's the right thing to do. We're going to go out there and we're going to invest the capital, get EVPs like Tom to travel the country and communicate what his corporation's doing. It's fantastic. But it's going to take some early adopters to step up and communicate, this is what's right, this is why we're going to do it, and believe in a better way.
That's great.
Yeah, within the organization, certainly I talked a minute ago about how you motivate some people, but I think it's important also, and Cynthia touched on this earlier, to reflect on the history, to make people, even though they may not have been here when the environmental stewardship activities started with the company or when the plant was first built, make them understand that it's part of the company's DNA, that when they come on board, they're part of that too. And make them really feel a part of it, take ownership in it, and then really progress from there. I think that's very important as you're moving forward. And I totally agree with you on some of the points that you made with regard to making sure that the company itself has a vision and that the people understand that vision. We try, as you saw from a couple of my slides hopefully, we try to make sure things are visualized very well for associates. When they come into work, they don't have a lot of time before they come into work, go to the production line, they'll have their team meeting, then they'll start up. So they don't have a lot of time. What we want them to see when they come into work are those Kaizen points. We want them to see how their fellow associates, maybe they have been recognized for something good that they've done for the environment or for another type of Kaizen activity. So we visualize those. We have them on the team boards so that the team meetings they can be recognized, and we go out and make sure that we recognize them too as a management team. So I think we try and visualize, make sure that things are very evident for people, and they can be evident on a quick basis, because not a lot of people will stand and read a sign, but they'll notice the sign as they go by. And if it catches their attention, then they'll go back and read it. So that's what we try and do with our associates, to make sure things are very clear, very simple, visualized, they can be understood fairly easily, and then through that we help to motivate them.
Great, that's great. One last question on my part, and then we'll turn it to the audience for a little bit. Hayes, you made a great point about, I can remember vividly the same example of sitting in the back seat with my mom and dad. And thankfully they did quit, and my brothers and I would, echo every car ride, it seemed like.
But she finally quit, but
yeah.
I wouldn't let it go.
Oh, that's it. I mean,
we had like bets. Mom, I will do this if you stop, right?
Yeah. Exactly, one step short of grounding.
Right.
Yeah. And some of the greatest ideas and some of the impetus for so many of the great programs in scouting come from Boy Scout troops, Cub Scout packs, whether it's a young person or an adult leader who suddenly looks at it and says, wow, this is so simple. Why haven't we thought of this before? What are some ideas that have come your way that could help a local Boy Scout council initiate a sustainability, whether it's a campaign or an effort? What have you seen from ground level? I've started with Hayes a few times, Tom. I'll start with you this time.
No, I think from our standpoint, in looking at, for example, zero landfill, what can they do? There is still a lot of waste, quite frankly, when you have just your average camp out, your average camporee. There's a lot of materials that are taken on that then fortunately they're carried out, but they're still put into a landfill somewhere. Sure. I mean, just because you carry it out doesn't mean you take it home and it never goes, goes away magically. Yeah. So there are a lot of materials that are taken that we can do a better job of teaching the scouts. Okay, there's a better way to do that. There's a better way to wrap something or package it, to preserve it, that you can use less materials. Mm-hmm. There's better ways to handle materials so that they don't need as much packaging to begin with, and things like that. Again, from a corporate standpoint, I think corporations can do a lot with encouraging scouts to come in and learn from them too, like the STEM camp out that we had. That, again, you can have an environmental camporee in exactly the same way. So I think they're getting ideas, particularly from younger scouts, starting to generate and teach them how much they put into a landfill, mm-hmm. How much they put into the ground, how much they put into the water, and how valuable those resources are. So I think teaching is a big part of it. I think, again, visualizing for them what we do with our STARS program. I told the story last night, I think it was at dinner, that we have a lot of students come in, and at the very beginning we teach them, okay, how many gallons of milk do you drink in a week? And we get some football players that's like 2 or 3 gallons. So we actually bring in a container and say, okay, this is the amount of empty containers you're putting into a landfill in 2 weeks. Now, think about a year. And the looks they give, like, oh my God, I didn't realize I was doing that. So same thing in scouting. I think if we take the next step and start teaching them, sustainability merit badge is an excellent idea, and I'm really glad that that's been put in place. But take that next step as far as teaching them, having them apply that in scouting, then take it home to their home. And it's surprising how many comments we get later at SIA from parents that then have applied that in their businesses, or applied that in their charitable organizations and things. So it can work that way.
That's great.
Yeah, well, Tom just nailed it. That's the biggest reason I'm here. I feel like the kids are the way to deliver this message. I mean, it's Absolutely. What I needed it. My son, and I'll tell that story a little later, kind of hit me between the eyes on this thing. I have 3 children under the age of 8, and it's just they have an opportunity, I think, to open your eyes to some things that I wouldn't have normally seen before. And so I think that at Solar City we're very interested in getting aligned with the scouts to provide them with the materials they need, just to drive awareness, just educate. I think if people do their due diligence and they just take a little bit of time to look at things, very quickly they'll understand, it's like, wow, there's not a catch with any of this. It's just a better way, right? Yeah. We do have options. There are other ways to power your home or power your business other than just buying electricity from a utility company all the time, the way we've done it for the last 200 years. And I have nothing against utility companies, but there's some other solutions I think that are out there and what we can do, and people are getting that, businesses are getting that, and so all I want to do is drive awareness. And I think these young, really bright people that are very insightful are the vehicle to deliver and disseminate some of that information.
That's great. Yeah, the power of young people in our organization is amazing.
It is.
It
Yeah.
is just absolutely amazing, and it's what makes us so proud of what we do. So I appreciate that. Let's turn it to the audience. Who has a question? Back there in the back. It's always the guy furthest away from the microphone.
It's
It never
great.
fails.
Oh, okay, I'm standing. All right. I was wondering if you guys ever developed any kind of community challenges with the sustainability idea, or as you encourage different organizations within your community to, let's say, try to limit one part of their energy consumption, and then maybe show it on a community level. I don't know if you guys ever done that at all.
We, well, two things. One is the STARS program that I talked about is with the local high schools. And so we do actually establish targets within those high schools for waste generated, waste disposed, and various other targets. And then the students have to come up with the ideas to help achieve those targets. And then we actually, and I had to skip over the slide pretty quick, we actually give out awards to the schools, and they are recognized publicly in the community. The other thing, we worked with the city of Lafayette on their sustainability. Cities, I hate to say this, more than anything else, they put up their hands and say we don't have the money and don't even start programs. It's amazing how many communities, unfortunately, don't even have basic recycling programs in place, which is kind of an embarrassment, unfortunately. So got to get them started and show them how they can make money or at least not lose money by getting involved in some of those activities. Setting targets, we worked with the city of Lafayette and helped them figure out some good metrics for number of tons they want to achieve through just their basic recycling to get them started, and also about separation and commingling of activities and things like that, separating their waste streams. So we've done that with the city of Lafayette, haven't spread it out any further than that at this point.
Brad,
Yeah.
we have one question that one of the questions that came from the online participants said, would you suggest incorporating the no landfill concept or something like it into the principles of leave no trace? So within our scouting principles, is that something we should add?
Diane, where are you? Should we? It sounds like a yes to me.
So
Great.
for the online participants, then yes.
It's nice to know we have somebody actually listening online.
We do. We
That's
have
great.
yeah, more than that are in this room.
Absolutely.
Another
That's
question.
great.
Probably time for one more. Stand up, please.
Hey, my name is Zach Carson, and I guess a question for both of you is, with both of your companies, do you keep your initiatives and how-to about sustainability internal, or are you open to sharing them with your competitors? And how do you take changes internally and spread them across to create a movement rather than just sort of internal change? And like, how can that relate to camps and different communities within scouting?
No, that's a good one. So we just had a meeting, and some of your folks came to it. It was the Renewable Energy Summit that we had out in New York City, a big NASDAQ conference, and we invited 5 different people similar to Tom's role. So we had the head of GE Sustainability there. We had the head of BMW Sustainability Group there, and a few other companies. It was just really great to see this consortium of other people that were responsible, what Tom's responsible for at Subaru, sitting down and sharing best practices. You know, there really hasn't been a platform or an environment yet. And so we need to do a lot more of that at Solar City is, you know, go to our key, Walmart's an enormous customer of ours. We've done all of eBay's campus, Yahoo's campus, it goes on. And we need to bring these sustainability leaders together and talk about, okay, this is some of the best practices that we were doing. We also recently had an event. Fortune did their green conference down in Laguna Niguel in Florida, or in Laguna Niguel in California, and Michael Dell came and spoke a lot about his packaging and what they're doing, and they're literally making the packaging out of mushrooms. You can eat the packaging. It's amazing what they're doing, but that opened the eyes to, I think, a lot of other packaging companies to say, okay, we believe in a better way to do this. Let's look at how we do it. So it's interesting. I think over the past 3 years, more and more groups are having these meetings. And in the past, 10 years ago, there wasn't a sustainability manager in these large corporations. They weren't talking about environmental stewardship, 10 years ago. So it's nice to have a real seat at the table at the EVP level with people like Tom and these large corporations saying, okay, we're going to step up. And frankly, it's because of the consumer. right? You know, people are going to look at Walmart, they're going to look at Target, they're going to look at these places and say, look, if you don't get your act together, and you're not responsible, and you don't exercise environmental stewardship, then we're not going to buy your products anymore. And so we have a real voice. I encourage you guys to speak out about it, and it's fantastic to see these senior leaders in these organizations getting together and talking about some of the things they're doing. I mean, we're just getting started. There's so much more we can do as we move forward.
Yeah, again, organizations like Solar City, I know he's mentioned Subaru several times, and thank you, but you guys do a great job too. I don't want that, I know you're going to talk about it in a few minutes. You know, as far as spreading it, we like to joke we've had everything from potato chips to rockets come and visit us, from Frito-Lay to Raytheon has come and benchmark with us, and we invite any company to come. We've had several competitors come in. One of my good friends is Kevin Butt, the Chief Sustainability Officer at Toyota. He's come several times. We've learned from them, certainly, and they've learned from us. So we share a lot of ideas. Several other competitors have come in because I look at it like a Miracle on 34th Street. You know, when they said, we don't have the toy here, but you can go down and buy it at the store down the street. Well, we'd like to learn from you, and we'd like to share that with you. We'd like to share the wealth in this regard, because if we all work together on it, we can improve things much more quickly. And so that's kind of our vision, or our look at it. And within the organization, we try to what we call Yokoten, and that's spread things throughout the organization. By virtue of the meetings that I talked about today with the entire management team getting together often, by virtue of going out and the go-and-sees, we can spread things throughout the organization much quicker. We also have what we call a flash report. If someone comes up with a fantastic idea, we'll put it out by email to all the members of the management team, group leaders, and so forth, and get those out quickly. So that they can be spread throughout the organization quickly. So we do a lot to try and Yokoten great ideas and get them out there and spread throughout the organization as quickly as possible.